So we're done here in Woodsbury. I didn't record anything. It was a dryer with a control board issue. Unit is now repaired, and now I'm headed home, guys. You got a lot of stuff. Jacuzzi. Got no signal. Just some good dry. Rippy. So let me let you guys, Larry Georgia ain't really much to look at, but nice scenic view, guys. I have absolutely no signal.
You have a message.
No signal yet. Got one bar. That is wild. Looks like it's shut down. I've got one bar. What are you doing? Squirrel. Can I find my way? Still got nothing. Let's see what I do now. To Ingalls, I gotta make a left. Well, I gotta make a right on Cove and then make a left at Ingalls. Something went wrong. There we go. We're getting some bars now. I just saw 2 bars. They went away. I got 2 bars. 3 bars. Okay, let's try now. Home. There we go. Not even 9 yet.
I remember growing up when America was amazing. It was great. You had no fear of walking the streets. You had no fear of moving from town to town. You had no fear of whatever, right? 18 years old and leaving home. I had no fear of leaving home. At 18. But I remember growing up, and it was an embarrassment to make children out of wedlock. It was an embarrassment for the father, the man, to make a child, or for the woman to get pregnant and have a child. And if that did happen, because it happens sometimes, the mother, the parents, the father and the mother would send you away. They'll send you from Alabama to up to Indiana. And like, where is she? Oh, she out of town for a minute. And 9 months later, she come back and a baby in her arm. You're like, what the? I remember when I first started dating at 15, one of my greatest fears was to get her pregnant. Because I didn't want a shotgun wedding. I wasn't ready for marriage. So I was careful not to do that early. It was an embarrassment. I hardly knew black women or even white women who were having babies out of wedlock. They knew it was an embarrassment, number one, and that it wasn't good for children to be born without the father and the mother, that the father was needed to lead the mother and the children, to be the head of the wife and the children. That's gone now, and look what a mess we have. Remember when America was great? Anyone that tells you that America has never been great, they're lying to you. I'm a witness to it. It was great. I moved from Alabama to Indiana, from the plantation to Indiana, got a job for 2 weeks, flew out to California on my own, paid my way. I never thought, well, I'm not going to be able to get a job. I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm afraid. And I was 18 years old. I'm like, what now? That's gone too. Because the fathers are not guiding the wife and the children in the way to go. And when you leave the mother alone with the children, you can bank on it. She will destroy them for her own personal gain. And she can't help it because she can't see. There is a documentary, a documentary from 1982 that focuses on what happens when women decide to make babies out of wedlock. This is from way back archives. A documentary called 1982 Special Report, Single Mothers. This documentary dives into the reasons behind the growing number of single women choosing to have children and examining the impact of their decision. Reporter Donna Martin visit 5 women from diverse backgrounds in the Baltimore/Washington metropolitan area, all of whom made the decision to become a single mother. These women openly discuss the economy and emotional realities of having a child alone. So what we're going to do is kind of long. So we're just going to pay. We're going through these clips throughout the whole show. All right, throughout today, all 3 hours. I'm not playing them all in 1 hour. I want to take your calls. It's open line Friday. Read your super chats and all that. So we're going to go through these sound bites through the whole 3 hours. Here's the first sound bite from Frida and Tony. Single mother used to be unheard of. This is from way back archives. Watch this.
More unmarried women are joining the ranks of single parents. They admit it's tough, but they are also confident they can do as good a job of parenting as many married couples. Of the 60,000 babies born in Maryland in 1980, almost 26% were to unwed mothers, compared to a 17% national average.
17 years ago, the attitude of society is not the same as society's attitude today. It is very difficult to be, or it was very difficult to be a single parent 15 years ago. It just wasn't acceptable behavior. It was just definitely a no-no.
Yeah, remember when black women, it was a no-no for black women to have children out of wedlock? And I like this because I want black Americans to know that at one time in the history of America, black people had character. They really did. They weren't blaming others. They were in charge of their own lives. It used to be a no-no to have children out of wedlock. Now these black women dropping babies like nothing going on and don't even care. And twerking over it. Well, that is. But it was a no-no. And I'm also, in listening to this woman, it's interesting how Satan made women make the wrong decisions. And they think that it's their own decision and it's all for themselves. It has nothing to do with the baby. They want to have a baby to make themselves feel good. Their egos. Isn't that amazing? And they think it's their decision. Because the hell comes through the woman and she doesn't know she is serving evil. She just doesn't know. Some women are waking up to it now, but she doesn't know. So the spirit of the mother come down through the generations. Watch this from way back.
For Frida, balancing childcare with an education and a career began when she was still in college. Although society's attitude didn't matter to Frida, her mother's opinion did.
like I said, my concern was, how is she going to feel about me? I mean, is she going to think that I'm not a very nice person? Is she going to think that I'm a very promiscuous person? Is she going to think that my morals are loose? All of those things concern you because you do want your parents to be proud of you. And she was disappointed, and as I indicated, she let me know that she was disappointed. But after she got over being angry or frustrated or whatever emotion she was feeling at the time, she sat down and said, okay, what are we going to do?
Tony's father was never involved in his upbringing. The subject is a sensitive one with Frida.
I had very little contact with Tony's father, and I really don't want to get into that part of it. It was a decision that I made. I made the decision not really considering his position concerning the situation, and he just didn't play a role, not at all, and he still doesn't. I don't think that Tony has suffered or has been denied anything because he is the child of a single parent.
That's a lie. That's evil. That is evil, and that's a lie. He is suffering. But she got her mind. She thinks she's making those decisions. The worst thing, of all the worst things that can happen to children of all races, male and female, boys and girls, is to not have a father, to be turned away from their fathers. They spend a lifetime yearning for their fathers. Material things not going to solve that. Bringing a fake father into their life not going to solve that. Having uncles and cousins, male cousins, are not going to solve that. Anyway, because it's spiritual, and you have to connect with your earthly father spiritually. So I understand she can't see. Mothers set their children up to suffer the whole lifetime, and a lot of them don't realize it. Some of them do. So let's hear what Tony has to say. This woman's son. This is from way back archives as well.
Well, I think about my father off and on.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't matter because my mother's there. I feel she'll always be there. And he hasn't given me anything for 17 years, and what could he possibly give me now?
She insists that Tony's uncle and other relatives and friends have been good substitute fathers for her son. She says she has always been able to fulfill most of Tony's emotional needs. In return, he has had to learn that his mother's career is important to her, as is her need for space and privacy. He was expected to take care of himself and share housekeeping responsibilities at an early age. Both mother and son say their relationship is a close one.
Well, my relationship with my mother, I have the highest respect for because I know that she had it hard, because I know I'm not easy to get along with, and we're just alike, and we both and since we're both alike, it's like she always says it's like looking at herself in the mirror.
Yeah. She has recreated him in her image. She's raising a girl.
Yep.
And he thinks about his father a lot because every human being's soul yearns for the father. And there's nothing that woman or anyone or uncle, nobody can do to satisfy that yearning unless he or she return to the father. It's spiritual. And he's just like his mother. When she look at him, she's looking at herself. So you had two females fighting. Poor guy, right? The devil is busy. He works through the woman to destroy the children of God by turning them away from their fathers. That yearning, that emptiness, that thinking about your father all the time while growing up and even after you get older is a yearning for the father. It's in you. You can't help it. It's a return to the father. It's not about getting married. It's not about having children. It's not about having money. It's a yearning, but the devil, it's a yearning for the Father, and the devil tell you, oh, if you got married, you'll be fine. No, you won't. You're in your prison, the prison of your imagination, going around in circles, and the devil and his little demons are making all kind of suggestions for you, and they're all wrong. And then you go and pay some expert stupid money for years, and they tell you all wrong information. And then they put you on medication, and they send you home. You can overcome, but you got to work on you. You must forgive and return to the Father. Nothing is going to fulfill that void. No drugs, no nothing. No drag queen, no nothing. It's a spiritual thing. Amazing video though. It's what's happening right now and forever and ever. Amen. So I'm going to go to, here's Karen and Jonathan. Karen was sloppy with her birth control because she wanted to be a mother. Watch this from way back. Archives.
Karen works 6 days a week as a nurse, and she is the mother of 2-year-old Jonathan. When she first found out she was pregnant, she told her family and friends it was an accident. She admits now she was sloppy with birth control because she wanted a baby.
I always wanted to be a parent because I thought raising a child was a very important part of life. I did not grow up wanting to be a single parent, but there were no prospects of marriage, and I was getting older. And in my 20s, I had put 35 as a cutoff date because I didn't want to be 40 years old and having my first child. To me, having a child was more important than being married.
She listened to the devil. He made her think that. Really, those ideas came. It's like the ideas come to men now. They want, oh, I need to get a wife. I need to be married with a family. Those ideas are from the devil. They are not true. They're just not true. This woman got the same ideas from the same devil. Karen talked about her anger toward her own mother. Watch this.
This baby, he looked exactly the way he was only 6 pounds. I don't like real big babies. He had hair. I don't like bald babies. So he was exactly what I had pictured if I could have said what I wanted. He was beautiful in the hospital, never cried. I thought, oh, it's all coming true. I got home, I walked in the door, and he started. And of course I had my mother telling me what to do, and an aunt who's raised 7, my sister who has none. I thought, my God, what have I done? What have I done?
You listened to
I really
the
am
devil.
angry at my mother for not really telling me what it was really like. She made it look so easy that that's the way I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't, and it isn't. It's hard.
And it wasn't easy for your mother either. She listened to the devil. The devil gave her those ideas. I promise you that. Oh, have a baby. The devil tells men and women, oh, the next step is to get married. And you walk right into more hell. And Karen goes on to talk, to say that she didn't want her father in the child's life. She didn't want his father in the child's life. Watch it from way back.
Karen didn't want Jonathan's father to be part of their lives. She's proud she can support herself and her son, though she works overtime to do it. She does get
That's
help from
evil.
her family, which makes it easier to cope.
He's got a lot of role models. I've got a father, 2 brothers, and a brother-in-law, and that are the male role models, and he's got an aunt who he loves almost as much as me. And they're all different. They all give different things to him. They all offer something different. And they're starting to have more and more to do with him as he gets older and they can communicate with him. So I haven't for one time, and since I've had the baby, have I felt bad that he does not have a father. I have never had any guilt about that at all. People have told me that I should, and but I don't.
She's too evil to have guilt. Her father, role models can never take the place of a real father. Boys and girls, men and women, yearn for their real father, and no invitation is going to change that.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight we begin with a moment of gratitude, frankly. Thanks to Senate Republicans. In 2016, Merrick Garland, well, never served on the U.S. Supreme Court. And it's now obvious the Biden's AG is more of a political hack than even Eric Holder. And today, Merrick Garland was grilled and exposed on the Hill. Take a look.
This is a matter in dispute, in discovery in that court, and I'm going to leave it for the district court to make a determination. After
I would just say one last thing. It's not in dispute. This is what he said in the court filing. Jack Smith's team said that.
We do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them, and will you provide those communications?
Money's not going to solve the problem when the Department of Homeland Security and the President of the United States refuse to enforce the law.
Now, we're going to bring you the full highlights. That's coming up straight ahead. We'll get reaction from the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Jim Jordan, plus day 2 of the Hunter Biden trial featuring Hunter's actual laptop as evidence. By the way, did you get that, NPR? Hunter Biden's laptop was real all along. But first, we turn to a political stunt at the White House. 3.5 years into his 4-year term, only 153 days until Election Day, and all of a sudden, your President Joe shuffled out to the podium to announce an executive order on the border crisis. Now, this deadly crisis has been raging for more than 3+ years, but with just a few months until the election, Biden has now decided it's time for action. Of course, Biden's election conversion, well, that will do next to nothing to actually solve the crisis. It's all smoke, it's all mirrors, and as reported by our own Bill Melugin, it does not stop the 1,500 illegal immigrants per day released into the U.S. or the 30,000 illegal immigrants per month that Biden is flying directly into the U.S. that you're paying for. Meanwhile, unaccompanied minors, they're exempt from the order, and don't expect any kind of mass deportation of the 10 million plus unvetted Joe Biden illegal immigrants already in our country. And as we have mentioned many times, many are from our top geopolitical foes. In other words, nothing's going to change except Biden's talking points. So let's step back. How did we get here? At the end of Trump's first term, the border was secure like never before. Illegal immigration plummeted. Trump's border security very first day in office with the stroke of a pen.
Vulnerable migrants from accessing certain critical life benefits. We have restored the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, the DACA program. We have rescinded so many and have restored so many that he really dismantled.
Now, to the surprise of no one, millions of illegal immigrants from all around the world began pouring across the border. Now, the scenes were and the scenes remain horrific. Border Patrol was totally and is totally today overwhelmed. Vetting still almost non-existent.
Certain critical life benefits. We have restored the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, the DACA program. We have rescinded so many and have restored so many.
Can you?
From Washington tonight. Well, nothing says vim and vigor like an octogenarian president who's ready to throw down. Yeah, we have the details on the Biden interview gone horribly awry. And Attorney General Garland defends the left's lawfare against Trump today on Capitol Hill. The twisted sound, that's ahead. And tonight, is this cop or is he a bulldozer? 'Cause 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 ' An Oklahoma police officer seemingly defying the laws of physics to catch a fleeing suspect. Tonight, Jimmy Fala has the details on this viral video and a lot more. But first, Biden's border head fake. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, this is Joe Biden's border legacy in 3 names. The first one, David Antonio Calderon, an illegal alien who was freed from prison in El Salvador and soon after crossed into the United States. He's now accused of murdering a woman in West Virginia. By the way, the victim's body was burned, almost beyond recognition. Weeks before that, Calderon allegedly attacked 2 homeless people with a baseball bat. He has an extensive criminal history in his home country. And then there's this lovely Marvin Dionel Perez Lopez. He came to the United States illegally in January from Guatemala and has an immigration court date in 2027. He was arrested after allegedly grabbing an 11-year-old girl off the street and forced her into his van, where he raped her. And of course, you can't forget about Jose Ibarra, the illegal from Venezuela accused of killing Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. She was out for a jog when Ibarra allegedly attacked and raped her. He's accused of disfiguring her skull. Ibarra pled not guilty just days ago. And we won't ever know the names of the thousands of illegals who are kept conveniently secret by the Biden administration after they were arrested. Or even the Chinese nationals who were arrested trying to breach U.S. military bases, or the Jordanian names. Who are these people who are trying to get into Quantico? The crime epidemic among illegals, the national security concerns, the billions this is costing taxpayers, has driven this to the top of voters' concerns. Even the New York Times had to grudgingly admit that Trump's approach to the border and his mass deportation plans resonate now with voters. Wow. Remember the old liberal line, so you want to round up millions of people and try to deport them? Well, now Americans apparently saying, si se puede. And of course, they blame Biden bigly, as they should. Hispanic Americans who are here legally are just as traumatized, by the way, as other Americans.
In El Paso, it's become a huge problem to where, we've had break-ins. I've been here for 30 years. Yeah, my whole life, I've lived here, and, this is not something that we've really had to worry about, hey, we got to make sure everything's locked up, or hey, make sure when you're walking around, if you're in the dark, be careful, because you just don't know anymore. It's scary.
You bet it's scary, but voters are also angry. And they blame the guy who opened the spigots for dozens of countries. The guy who gave corrupt foreign leaders a gift. An easy way to export their problems here by just emptying their prisons and insane asylums. That this endangered Americans or somehow overwhelmed our system, our schools, our healthcare, that didn't matter to Biden and his open borders, America-hating fanatics who work for him. Because their sole goal was to fundamentally change this country. Remember, the country that they consider systemically racist and wicked. So they flooded America with what they hope will be future Democrat voters in order to create a permanent majority. And what will that do? Well, that's going to render your vote meaningless. And yes, Democrats, every single one of them who's honest, they want illegals to vote as soon as possible. Oh yeah, that's coming. That's the plan. Thus, nothing that Biden said today about the border matters. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's an election year. Biden has no intention of limiting the number of people coming here, let alone stopping asylees from gaming the system.
Small business owners who want to save time and money should go to buyberg.com.
Intention of limiting the number of people coming here, let alone stopping asylees from gaming the system. But you gotta give his speechwriters some credit. They're trying to turn the tables on Republicans. It's hilarious.
I've come here today to do what the Republicans in Congress refuse to do. Take the necessary steps to secure our border. I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border.
Oh, wait, what? Thought he couldn't act on his own. And it includes making sure illegals who want to come here download an app.
We are allowing asylum claimants to come to the ports of entry using our CBP One app in a lawful, safe, and orderly way. When people access the CBP One app and come to the port of entry, they have been screened and vetted before they arrive at the port of entry.
Use the app, illegals. Come on. Of course, these details of this are just terrible, and the supposed threshold numbers they cite people are going to be tracked or monitored. They're never going to be tracked or monitored. And after the election, they're just going to throw the borders wide open again. Now, even Mayorkas, when you were listening with him and with Neil Cavuto, was kind of struggling to remember all the rules.
If we experience 7 consecutive calendar days where the average number of encounters each day is below 1,500, then 14 days after that 7th day, we will reopen. And if in fact the number of encounters thereafter is 2,500 or more on average for 7 consecutive days, we have the authority to again implement this bar.
Okay, were you laughing? He's thereafter. This is the same guy who said the border invasion wasn't a crisis, and he was impeached for violating his duties to enforce U.S. immigration law. Now check out the numbers at the border right now. It's criminal. 5,200 a day, 5,000 plus last week. Daily average in April, 4,200. And that's not including the gotaways. Can't see how this moves the needle for Biden at all, given these numbers.
It's a bit of a 180 from his previous policy of allowing open immigration to flood in. The fact that Biden addressed this now, at this point in time, 5 months before the election, really sounds like political posturing to me.
Yeah, they always think Americans are stupid, don't they? They're not. We have to never lose sight of this simple fact. Everything the Democrats do between now and Election Day is designed for them to keep power. Our Constitution, our laws, norms, they always love to talk about norms. None of it matters to them. And neither does the suffering of the American people. It's about winning at all costs so that they can return to their primary objective, reordering America into a place that you won't recognize and where you won't want to live. Right now, it looks like there are still enough of us who love this country enough to save it. And that's the angle. Joining me now.
Expedia members get member prices and rewards for future trips.
Joe Biden's never worked harder than his first day in office. I've never seen a man sign so many things. It was executive order after executive order. He didn't really know what he was signing, but in 24 hours, Biden's John Hancock broke the border, making him the most successful travel agent in history. But Biden's success turned our country into the United Nations parking lot. And he told Time magazine he had no regrets about reversing Trump's policies, saying this: "If I was wrong, it's because I took too long. For 4 years, we demanded he put it back together. He ignored us for 3, and in year 4, he said, I don't have the power. We even told him the act that Congress passed that gave him the power. Still nothing, until today."
Today, I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border. I'm announcing actions to bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum. Migrants will be restricted from receiving asylum at our southern border unless they seek it after entering through an established lawful process. And those who seek to come to the United States legally, for example, by making an appointment and coming to a port of entry, asylum will still be available to them, still available.
Biden threw himself a party at the White House to celebrate. But Democrat senators in swing states up for re-election didn't show because Biden's toxic, and not in a masculine way. Biden's so-called border shutdown order doesn't shut down the border at all. It keeps catch and release. We read it, and so did Trump.
Now, after nearly 4 years of his failed, weak leadership, pathetic leadership, crooked Joe Biden is pretending to finally do something about the border. But in fact, it's all about show because he knows we have a debate coming up in 3 weeks. The truth is that Joe Biden's executive order won't stop the invasion. It's weak and it's pathetic. It will actually make the invasion worse. Millions of people a year will continue to pour across our border and be released into our country.
Biden claims he'll shut down the border if illegal crossings hit 2,500 a day, but they're already over 3,000. So let's just say Biden shuts down the border immediately. What does it really mean? It means this. If Jose gets caught crossing the border, and if we say, Mexico, take him, and Mexico just says, no way, Jose, Jose stays in Estados Unidos. Biden has no deal with Mexico. They just elected a new president yesterday. She's brand new. Biden hasn't even called to congratulate her, let alone cut a deal. There's no plan to deport anyone. Biden's just hoping that they leave. What happens is he keeps releasing them into the country, but they just aren't allowed to apply for asylum. So they just stay here in the shadows or in hotels for free. It's not like he's flying the Venezuelans back to Venezuela. Venezuela won't accept deportation flights. Migrants are still going to come here, and they're just going to stay because they're just not going to need asylum. So Biden's shutting down asylum claims, right? Wrong. Biden's still letting 1,400 illegals per day come into the country if they use the asylum app. You remember Open Table for illegals? You get to make a reservation to break into the country. And if you're a minor, Biden's executive order still lets you in. You get asylum. Or if you've been trafficked, which literally every migrant is, Biden still lets you in with asylum. And Biden's still flying in 30,000 migrants a month. That doesn't stop. But this is the best part. Migrants can still show up at the border and claim they're scared, and they're fast-tracked into the country. You get asylum if you say you're scared. I'm sure the migrants have never heard that. This executive order just orders more illegals. I'll take 30,000 Venezuelans in the air, 1,400 Mexicans on the app, and I'll take 30,000 Venezuelans in the air, 1,400 Mexicans on the app, and we'll do some Chinese and all the kids you can eat.
Who's going to watch those unaccompanied children? If they are allowed in, you don't ship them back, you don't do anything like that. So where do they go?
Neil, we deal with unaccompanied children in a humanitarian way, adhering to our values. We deter irregular migration. We build lawful pathways.
But this encourages drug cartels to take advantage of those kids, does it not, sir?
Neil, we're taking it to the drug cartels with unprecedented strength. We're going to adhere to our values while we take tough enforcement measures, which is what we have done.
Does anybody believe the Biden administration has taken it to the cartels with unprecedented strength? Have you heard anything about Biden dismantling the cartels? Any big arrests? Any big shootouts? Biden and the cartels are in league together. Even NBC is saying this executive order is a joke.
There is a pretty big difference between what this executive order looks like on paper and what Biden and other Democrats are using it to say they are doing in terms of shutting down the border, saying they're taking dramatic action, et cetera, and what it looks like how it'll actually play out on the ground. I'm pretty skeptical at this point that this is going to have any kind of immediate, measurable, dramatic result in terms of the number of people crossing.
A Venezuelan Biden migrant, Bernardo Maita, a gangbanger, just shot up a New York City cop in the leg, put 2 slugs in another cop's chest. Luckily, he's alive because of his bulletproof vest. Venezuelan gangs are infiltrating migrant camps from coast to coast. Investigative journalist Jonathan Cho caught a gang right outside of Seattle.
TDA members are also suspected of infiltrating the migrant camp at Riverton Park United Methodist Church in Tukwila, just a few miles away from Seattle. We've obtained this internal email sent out by Puget Sound fire officials in April, warning first responders about this serious threat, saying firefighters are only allowed to enter church grounds if they are accompanied by 3 police units. Graham Bay is an outreach worker and has helped migrants move into area motels.
What do you do when you got 0 opportunities for work? You got 0 opportunities to advance yourself.
He says young men without anything to do all day at the camp are being actively recruited to join the gang.
What's happened is you've concentrated a bunch of people together and you've allowed them to begin to drift into the fringes of society.
Biden threw a party to celebrate keeping these people in the country. Look how easy it is.
Where are you guys from? What country?
Mauritania. Mauritania, from Africa?
Yes.
Yeah? And why'd you guys come to the United States? What country?
Nepal.
Nepal?
Yeah.
All of you from Nepal?
Yeah. No English.
This is America. See the red lights? That's Border Patrol.
Tidwana?
Straight.
Mexico? You are Tidwana?
No. San Diego. See the lights?
San Diego. Okay. Thank you.
San Diego, right there. Biden's faux executive order isn't designed to protect the country, it's to protect his campaign. Last election, he ran on opening the border, and this election, he wants you to think he's closing it.
Back in June of 2020, Biden was actually trusted more on the question of border security and immigration by a single point. Look at where we are in May of 2024. My goodness gracious. Look at this huge jump that Donald Trump has gotten. He is now ahead on this issue by 27 percentage points. So he's to seeing 10, 15, maybe 20 point shift, but basically a 30 point shift, 28 points if you want to be exact. That is very, very different.
A majority of the country now supports mass deportations. 42% of Democrats support it. If you care about the safety, security, and integrity of this country, there's only one man running to achieve that. The other one's trying to fool you. Don't be fooled. Senator Ted Cruz joins me now. So, Senator, I have this stupid executive order right here. You can still come in, even if Biden shuts down the border. Say you're scared, and Biden fast tracks you into New York City for asylum.
Yeah, look, this thing is utterly fake. It's a joke. Biden knows it's a joke. Now, I will say what's notable. He finally admitted today that he could have done something about this from the very beginning. He could have issued this order in 2021. He could have issued this order in 2022. He could have issued this order in 2023. He could have issued it last month or the month before, And he didn't. Why? Because he wants the 11 million illegals who have invaded this country. This is the outcome they want. They see them all as future Democrat voters. And so if people have to die, if people have to be murdered, if Laken Riley has to die, Joe Biden and the Democrats are okay with it. If the two NYPD officers shot this week by a Venezuelan illegal immigrant who was captured, we had him in Eagle Pass, Texas, and what did Joe Biden do? He let him go, and that Venezuelan went to New York and shot two cops. That's happening every week, and this has nothing to do with securing the border. This is all about the election in 5 months, and this is political camouflage. Joe Biden wants to say, I solved the problem, and it's all a prop. He thinks the voters are stupid, and they're going to ignore the last 3.5 years.
Well, you heard Mayorkas say that the administration's taken it to the cartels with unprecedented strength. I mean, you're down in Texas, Senator. Have you witnessed that?
Well, actually, he's inadvertently correct. The only time Mayorkas or Biden tell the truth is when they do it accidentally. Unprecedented strength. Let me give you two stats from the New York Times. The Mexican drug cartels in 2018 made roughly $500 million from human trafficking. $500 million is a lot of money. Last year, the Mexican drug cartels made over $13 billion from human trafficking. That's a 2,600% increase. So he's right. He's taken the cash to the cartels with unprecedented force. He's made them the most powerful forces in Mexico. And not only is he destroying America, he's also destroying Mexico. Look, in Texas, Mexico is our neighbor. Mexico is a wonderful, beautiful country, and the cartels are now terrorizing the people of Mexico. They are murdering people. They are kidnapping people. He has turned them into multi-billion-dollar global criminal conspiracies who are smuggling criminals and terrorists into America.
He's going to blame you. He's going to blame Trump at the debate. He's going to say, You didn't want this bipartisan deal. You guys buried it. I had a solution. You walked away because of politics. What's Trump and what are the Republicans going to say?
Look, there wasn't a bipartisan deal. There was a Chuck Schumer deal that was a terrible, terrible deal. The Chuck Schumer deal would have made the problem worse. The Chuck Schumer deal put in the law catch and release. It codified it. The Chuck Schumer deal gave work permits to illegal immigrants when they arrive here. The Chuck Schumer deal gave taxpayer-funded lawyers to illegal immigrants when they got here. The Chuck Schumer deal normalized roughly 2 million illegal immigrants a year, every year in perpetuity. It was a terrible, terrible deal. And the reason is Chuck Schumer doesn't want to secure the border. Joe Biden doesn't want to secure the border. The Democrats don't want to secure the border. They want this invasion. The whole purpose of the Chuck Schumer deal was for every Democrat running for re-election to say, see, we had a deal that would have fixed it, but the mean old Republicans wouldn't agree to it. And that's what Joe Biden is doing now. Now, I will make a prediction, Jesse. In the next few months, we're going to see the numbers.
In many ways.
In the next few months, we're going to see the numbers drop down a little bit. And this is just like what Biden did with gas prices. They're trying to fool the voters into ignoring his disastrous record. He wants this invasion, and so does every other Democrat.
Yeah, it's a numbers game. They do it with inflation. They do it with the jobs reports. They do it all the time. We're not going to be fooled by it. Senator Ted Cruz, Texas, thanks as always.
Thanks, Jesse.
Hunter Biden's gun trial and a former sex cult member ahead. Explosive second day in the Hunter Biden trial, the case where we do know the crime. We had tears, drugs, a scapegoat, and our first look at the laptop from hell. We'll have more on that in a moment. This case is all about Hunter lying on a gun form, which the prosecution will easily prove with pictures, videos, texts, witnesses, and cocaine residue on the gun holster. But Hunter's lawyer says that's not Hunter's drug residue. It's Haley's, Hunter's brother's widow, the one he was sleeping with. Yeah, Hunter's throwing his brother's widow under the bus. The defense also said that Hunter didn't even want to buy a gun. Hunter just drove Joe Biden's black Cadillac down to the AT&T store to buy a phone. Across the street was a gun store where a pushy salesman convinced Hunter to buy a Colt Cobra 38 special revolver with a speed loader and a box of ammo. You know how pushy salesmen are. Prosecutors also pointed out that Hunter took out thousands of dollars in cash a day, presumably to buy drugs. The defense says it wasn't for drugs. Hunter just didn't own any credit cards. He keeps cash like Fannie. Jurors saw videos of Hunter using drugs and listened to clips from Hunter's audiobook, and there were a lot of tears. Carrie Bond was in the courtroom and has the details. Carrie, who was crying?
Yeah, so Ashley Biden apparently shed a few tears while we were in there. I didn't personally see that, but our producer Jake Gibson did. I have to tell you though, Jesse, I was a bit surprised about that, given that Hunter Biden went on a pretty well-known book tour about this book a couple of years ago. And, you know, we sat through listening to about an hour of Hunter's own words in his own voice, listening to his audiobook as he detailed his wild drug escapades, including him talking about how finding crack was his superpower. So that was an interesting point sitting there. You know, I was watching the jurors' faces this afternoon. One tried not to laugh as a message was read from Hunter to Hallie where he called her unhinged and crazy for calling the FBI about his gun. Meanwhile, she called them because he had left it in an unlocked car with the windows down, and she was afraid the kids were going to find it. And she also was afraid he was going to either harm himself or others, given the fact that he had just the day before been texting her about being on a car and smoking crack and talking about doing a drug deal with a guy named Mookie. So it was an interesting day.
All right, so the jurors think Hunter's funny, and they're witnessing the Biden family cry. I don't think this is going the way the prosecution thought it would. What else happened today? Was there anybody else who cried? Were they bored?
The jurors were paying pretty close attention. You know, one thing I noticed, and Jesse, I mentioned this to you earlier, you know, Hunter had these interesting orange glasses on. I'm not sure if that was to get the attention of the jury or what. His wife was sitting behind him. He kissed her right before he sat down after lunch. And by the way, Jill Biden and Ashley Biden left during the lunch break, so we didn't see them this afternoon. But we'll see how this goes. Look, the prosecution has overwhelming evidence about Hunter's drug use, both before, during, and after the time that he bought the gun.
All right, well, we'll see how it shakes out. Always interesting, and down in Delaware, you never know what's going to happen, Carrie. Thanks as always.
Thank you.
This might seem like an open and shut case, but Jonathan Turley points out Hunter's legal team might have an ace up their sleeve. It's called jury nullification. It's when you pick a jury that will give you a not guilty verdict. They know you're guilty, but they just disagree with the law. The strategy plays on the racial makeup of the jury, which is mostly black, as well as the Biden's influence in Delaware. The hope is this jury won't convict for a drug-related crime. Everybody in Delaware knows the Bidens. That's why Jill and Ashley are sitting front row. But that's not all. The Biden family brought Mouse to court. Mouse is a Delaware legend. Joe Biden was the best man at his wedding. Mouse runs Delaware's NAACP and has been involved in the community for decades. They want every black juror to see Mouse sitting with the Bidens. If you can get the jury on your side, all of a sudden, this case is not a slam dunk. Susan Constantine's a jury consultant. All right, Susan, let's go through some of these jurors. Almost all of them seem to have some drug history or family history with drugs. One juror's childhood best friend died from a heroin overdose. Another juror had an alcoholic brother-in-law. Brother-in-law is now dead. One juror's dad was shot dead, and his brother was arrested for narcotics possession. Another juror pled guilty to a DUI, and another juror had an older brother addicted to PCP and heroin. How do you think these jurors are?
Well, they're definitely drug qualified, right, Jesse? So the fact that they've got so many family members and people that are close to them, a lot of them might have some sensitivity, knowing that what they've gone through as a friend, maybe as a family member, the trauma that they go through, but also too the rehabilitation side of it. So some of them might have empathy and compassion for Biden just because they have some background also in it within their family. So this is probably a good move for the defense.
Okay, and now we have another juror who says weed is no big deal and you should be able to buy a gun on it. She seems like a pro-defense juror to me. How about this one, though? This juror used to work for the Secret Service, and her husband is currently a member of the Secret Service.
Well, you know, I'm surprised that she actually admitted that. But then again, I'm sure that it would have been found out. But the fact that this is Secret Service, I think that those jurors would look at that and they're going, okay, well, this person's in the Secret Service. We've got Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. He's also been accused of taking drugs and so forth. So, you know, if it's okay for the government agents to do it, then why isn't it for him? So I'm really surprised, of course, that this one was not struck by the state. I mean, why didn't they use one of their preemptory strikes on this juror? I don't understand it.
Well, they might have run out of strikes, and then one juror left because I guess the commute was too long. So that brings in the alternate, and the alternate, one of them, is an Obama donor. I think we know how that one's going to go. Susan Constantine, thank you so much. We always appreciate your analysis.
You're welcome.
Well, today, Biden's Justice Department got in front of the courtroom with a plastic bag in hand and pulled out Hunter's laptop. The same one that was censored before the 2020 election, the same one that 51 intel officers said was Russian disinformation, the same one Joe Biden said was fake. The Justice Department admitted it's real, and they've had it since 2019, but they didn't want us to know about it before we voted last election. Now, there's no hiding it. They're using the laptop as unimpeachable evidence in a federal gun trial. John Kiriakou is a former CIA officer and whistleblower. They're able to melon scoop certain stuff out of there for taxes and guns, but they're just going to leave the rest of the laptop that points right to the big guy alone? How does that work?
Yeah, that shouldn't work. First of all, you're exactly right. We have to remember that 51 very, very senior CIA officers, former CIA officers, said this was a Russian disinformation operation, which clearly and obviously it was not. Hunter Biden said it was his computer. The Justice Department said it was his computer. And the contents have been published by the Marco Polo Foundation, so we know what's in it, and it's ugly. With that said, there's no reason under the sun to cherry pick some of the evidence out of this thing. Either it's going to be evidence in legal proceedings or it's not.
Now, it's going to be used, I believe, in the tax case in September. How can they work around that? All of those text messages and email communications, a lot of them involved Joe Biden.
Yes. Yeah, Joe Biden has said from the very beginning that when Republicans on Capitol Hill quoted these text messages, they were taken out of context. Well, now's the time to prove that that's the case, because these things are going to all be out there in the public domain, and the American people are going to be able to make their own decisions on it. If these were taken out of context, now is the time for Joe Biden to get ahead of it.
And you heard about the whistleblower saying that the Sugar Brother was untouchable. The CIA says don't lay a finger on the Sugar Brother's beautiful head of hair. Why would the CIA want to cut off an investigation into the guy lending the Bidens money?
Yeah, Jesse, I think the CIA is lying about this. The CIA made an unequivocal statement that nothing that the whistleblower said was true. But he has doubled down, and he's got the evidence to prove that he's telling the truth. And so the CIA's got to come clean. Either they tried to kill this investigation or they didn't. Just saying that they didn't. And not just that, they said it was absurd. They're going to need to put up or they're going to need to shut up.
Okay, well, when the CIA tells me something, I assume the opposite is true, but I think that's probably a good way to go about life in the United States. John, thanks as always. We always appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.
Biden's Attorney General gets his head kicked in on Capitol Hill. More on that. That Donald Trump's been convicted of a crime that nobody can name. Joe Biden's calling him a convicted felon. But Trump wouldn't have been convicted if it weren't for Biden. Today, Biden's Attorney General, Merrick Garland, went under oath. Does he think it's weird that his number 3 guy, Matt Colangelo, spontaneously decided to take a pay cut and help Alvin Bragg take down Trump weeks after Trump announced he's running?
You had no problem dispatching Matthew Colangelo. Who's Matthew Colangelo?
That is false. I did not dispatch Matthew Colangelo.
Matthew Colangelo became the Assistant Attorney General at the very beginning of the Biden administration. Colangelo makes this remarkable downstream career journey from the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and then pops up in Alvin Bragg's office to go get Trump. And you're saying that's just a career choice that was made that has nothing to do with the lawfare coordinated by the
saying it's false. I did not dispatch Mr. Colangelo anywhere.
Well, do you know how he ended up there?
I assume he he applied for a job there and got the job.
If Johnny took a pay cut to be my neighbor's landscaper, you'd think I'd say he probably just applied for the job and got it. Come on. Biden's guys are coordinating all of these Trump prosecutions. If you watch the show, we've proven it. Today, the Attorney General stonewalled.
Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fani Willis' office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Well, I'm going to say again, we do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them, and will you provide those communications?
If you make a request, we'll refer it to our Office of Legislative Affairs.
But see, here's the...
So send us a letter and we'll get back to you. Never. Garland also won't turn over the audio recording of Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur, where the president couldn't remember when he was vice president or when his son died and just rambled on about a client with a severed testicle.
Are you the arbiter, the decider of whether or not those tapes will be provided to this Congress at the subpoena of its committee to investigate the president?
Constitution requires me to protect the separation of powers and our ability to do investigations in the future.
Have you listened to the audio recording?
I have not, because there's no reason for me to listen to it.
I have a feeling Trump's going to listen to the tapes after he's inaugurated, probably puts them on Truth Social. Garland also said special counsel Jack Smith never tampered with evidence when he raided Mar-a-Lago and fanned out Trump's documents and slapped folders on top that said top secret.
Prosecutors aren't supposed to tamper with evidence, and it looks like that's what he did. He changed the sequence of the documents that he seized from Mar-a-Lago.
I'm sorry, that's a false characterization, but that is ongoing.
Here's what he said to the court, Mr. Attorney General. There are some boxes where the order of items within the box is not the same as in the associated scans. I mean, he said it. I didn't say it. He admitted to the court that they tamper with the evidence. He mishandled the very documents he's charging President Trump with mishandling. And I'm just asking, do you regret picking this guy as the special counsel in the most important special counsel investigation probably in American history?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the words tamper in the statement that Mr. Smith filed. He did not use those words.
Dave Rubin's the host of the Rubin Report. He joins us now. So when you take documents and you fan them out beautifully, and then you bring to the raid things that say top secret, slap them on top and take pictures and then leak them, is that tampering?
I think that is tampering. I am not a lawyer, but I believe that is tampering. I mean, the entire farce that we just witnessed for a few hours today was almost exactly like what we saw with Anthony Fauci testifying yesterday at Congress. These people never take responsibility for anything. The clip that really I thought was the most interesting there was the Matt Gaetz one. Because all he's saying is if you guys have emailed, if the Department of Justice has perhaps emailed Bragg's office, can we just see that? And even that, we can't even get an answer as it relates to that. You know, Jesse, I was watching the show in the green room, and I'm starting to see a theme here.
What's that?
That if you're a Democrat, you can basically get away with everything, and if you're a Republican, you can't get away with anything.
I know. I was a Democrat when I was a teenager, and like, look where that got me. But so if you're saying, if he's asking you, could we see correspondence? If you corresponded, why don't you say sure? Ask my team, we'll get it to you.
Because
why does he have to act so guilty and weasel around the answer for 5 minutes? It's because he is guilty. They probably have been coordinated.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Do you think we're ever going to see any of these documents, or is it going to be in 2040?
I think it will be closer to 2040 than 2024, let's say. I think this is what the Democrat machine, the deep state, they've done unbelievably well. They put a bunch of people in positions of power who never, the buck stops with nobody. Oh, refer to that office. Oh, call this guy. And it's this constant shell game. And then you have a couple decent Republicans. Thomas Massie also asked some great questions during that hearing. Jim Jordan, obviously. And it's like you hear them and they're trying. They really are trying. And we are watching our democracy just dissolve right in front of us. Right.
And then you get the Democrats who just waste time and say, aren't you lovely?
How
you
do you
smell beautiful.
feel?
What cologne are you wearing?
People are mean to you.
Imagine having Fauci, who oversaw the biggest pandemic in 100 years, and you just compliment him on how well his suit fits. And that's what you're using your 5 minutes for? What about these her tapes? So this is where Biden couldn't remember what day it was. Remember they said he was a well-meaning, elderly, doddering old man. They released the transcripts, but not the tapes. Are you suspicious they may have doctored the transcripts? Because they doctor White House transcripts.
I think there's every reason to believe they doctored the transcripts. He is a rambling old buffoon. I would take out well-meaning, and then you sort of have it. He's old and doddering. I think we can all agree on that. The the well-meaning part, I do not know.
All right, not very well-meaning. Dave Rubin, very well-meaning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
The Rubin Report. The Democrats and sex cults. That's next.
Yeah, but I do kind of remember that. Yeah, that they're definitely smart. Definitely smart, and some of them at least are quite capable. But even the capable ones are still wondering about their loneliness and maybe even their purpose. They're wondering what is their purpose? Can I really do anything like they say?
So are they starting to feel that way because they're getting older?
Maybe.
Because the older you get, the more you become depressed.
Yeah, they say you're supposed to get stronger from traumas and scars, but people get worse.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So Millennium, born 1981 to 1996. Z, born 1997 to 2012.
Okay, well then I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial. Oh, okay. And so I thought that, from what I remember of that, that came from Brave AI and Wikipedia. What I remember, I thought there was hope because Generation Z was going to save the world.
Well, don't lose your twinkle in your eye just from this. We're not. This is just a collection of videos on social media, right? Don't lose your twinkle in your eye for Gen Z there. Jesse.
Okay. And what about Richard?
Okay, so real quick, I had saved this video. I had it saved away in my list of stuff that I keep saving.
Right.
And I putting together the packet, I saw the biblical question. What are you trying to win? And so there's this guy named Richard Feynman. He died in 1988. Professor, total genius, Nobel Prize winner in physics. And we're talking about quantum physics, like the most complicated, like out there stuff that you could think of in physics, as far as I know. And here's this fascinating video of him talking about being an ordinary person and that anyone can do what he does.
Amazing.
So I wanted you to see it.
So watch this from X.
You would ask me if an ordinary person, by studying hard, get to be able to imagine these things like I imagine. Of course, I was an ordinary person who studied hard. There's no miracle people. It just happens they got interested in this thing and they learned all this stuff. They're just people. There's no talent, a special miracle ability to understand quantum mechanics or a miracle ability to imagine electromagnetic fields that comes without practice and reading and learning and study. So if you say you take an ordinary person who's willing to devote a great deal of time and study and work and thinking and mathematics and time, then he's become a scientist.
Amazing. And you say?
About what he said there, I'm not entirely sure. This is what I was saying earlier about not being sure. This is what I mean about what if you can do anything. The way I see that is like the bank robber example. If that bank robber you were talking about wrote a book on that, I bet you I could read it and be a pretty good, or at least a sort of good bank robber. You know what I mean? And I think most people can. I think there are different abilities, and so when you look at it the way I'm looking at it, maybe a little intellectually, you come up with a double answer. Yeah, everyone has abilities, but you could work at anything. You know, personally, the way I see the way I see circumstance, culture, maybe a weird way I see those things is I'm starting to see that those are things you can like overcome and get over, which might sound strange, but what I mean is like people say that you're stuck, you're who you are, you're destined to be what you are and do what you're doing, but I noticed that things like personality and culture are things you can let go of. They're not really you. So I find those things funny, things that you can overcome. If you can overcome that, circumstance is something you can overcome.
What but I can't respond to the biblical question. This is in relation to the biblical question to Sunday. And then I gotta take some calls here. What happened after my generation all the way down? What happened to the people that everybody seemed so hopeless?
To everyone after you.
After my generation, I would say. What happened to human beings that, like this thing about Generation Z being a hopeless generation, in your generation, the millennials, right? Millennials is like a hopeless generation. What happened?
There's nothing about hopeless millennials in this package. What are you talking about?
Well, the fact that they're talking about, oh, they're lonely, they lost,
the Gen Z or the millennials?
Gen Z.
Now that we figured out I'm a millennial, I'm taking sides. I'm not even talking about millennials. Yeah, how did it become that way?
It's like that man was saying, Richard.
Yes.
What's his name?
Richard Feynman.
Was saying there was a time when people just kind of lived, and they did their thing. They went to work. They did what they knew to do. I know one of the guys in my class. Well, he was in class behind me. He became a scientist, and nobody knew that he was going to be a scientist because he didn't seem that smart. He worked for a university, and then people in my class became doctors and lawyers and nurses and things, teachers. They just kind of, and I went to a all black school, right? And everybody, and we didn't know that I didn't know I'd be doing the work I've been doing for the last 30-some years, right? So we weren't thinking that way. We just kind of, when we graduated high school, went away. He got a job, and one thing led to another. What happened to the millennials and Z that they're so lost and hopeless and don't know what to do?
Well, you ever see a kid fall?
You have a message.
Yeah.
Oh my God, are you okay? And then the kid starts crying.
Right.
Okay. You know how you just described just living?
Yeah, we just kind of.
We're back in Atlanta, ladies and gentlemen. At 60 Gangs, is your boy Doug. I would like to thank you guys for joining me this morning on my travels to Woodbury, Georgia. Hope you enjoyed the sights, the scenes. Because tomorrow we'll do something else, so I have no idea. But one of the things I'm going to get into is I'm going to look into a Jeep Cherokee that's leaking in the back. There's a gasket that keeps the wire harness secure. It had dry rotted, and there seems to be no replacement part in that Jeep. So I have to come up with a way to waterproof the wire harness that's in the back of the lift door in the rear of the Jeep. So look forward to some content on me trying to figure that out. For right now, this is your boy Doug, back in Atlanta. June 5th. Happy birthday to my dad.